suggests that Luke's RC has no control either. So I don't know.
He said he might heckle. Yeah. Anyway. I'll get you next time, Nick. Right. Okay. So, yeah, rocket duration. Can you see my screen? Yeah, good stuff. Okay. So, no. Stop that again. Why? Don't know why it's not playing. Hang on a second.
Just while Luke's doing that as well, if you've got any questions and answers, please put them through the Q&A box. I should have said this at the start, but again, we're just remembering what to do after a bit of a layoff. So just bear with us on that. But Q&A box, and then we'll relay them to Luke at the appropriate time, or not.
Screen. Okay. Share. Okay, now that's working. Right, so it's my Top Gun picture. So just so you can illustrate, see what you're talking about, little rocket duration models. We can do built-up models as well, but this was some of the things that we were playing around at Ferry Meadows and Buckminster and elsewhere this year. But my main focus this year and the subject of this presentation has been E20. So let's turn to this topic now. What's an E20 and how have they come about? Well, the first thing to say is that E20 is an evolving class. In its most basic form, an E20 is an electric-powered model that has a 20-inch projected wingspan. So projected means tip to tip dihedral, okay? 20 inches across there. The idea is that the model will climb quickly and then transition into a glide, and at the end of the motor run, which will then form the main part of the flight. So this, of course, is very different to E30, for example, 30-inch wingspan, okay, which has a minute-long motor run, and that's a very slow, gentle climb. Now, E20 has evolved over recent years with the development of small motors and small, powerful LiPo batteries. Now, I should make it clear from the outset that I'm not an expert in the field. In fact, I'm not an expert in anything, to be honest. Perhaps a very small niche of theology, but other than that, no, I'm not an expert. But I have given the subject some serious thought. I've done some significant work on E20 and have been involved in promoting competitive flying of E20 during this year. Before we move on, I think it would be helpful to give a little bit of background and history to give a context to where we are today. And I'm indebted to fellow Peterborough Model Flying Club member John Whitmore, who's been involved in the development of this class and started to put together a bit of history of its development. I know he's probably watching. I think I saw his name. And he sent me some notes earlier. So I started typing them and then he sent me some stuff. So I've used a lot of his material here because he's more succinct than I am. So Jonathan notes that E20 developed from P20 in early 2013. And it seems that the US developments and the ideas of the late Ian Middlemas, another Peterborough Model Flying Club member, those seem to develop almost virtually simultaneously. We have evidence of the Willamette Club in Oregon as a major driver in the US, announcing a contest in their March 2013 newsletter for E20. Ian developed the class over in the UK and documented his progress on the Peterborough Model Flying Club website. And I would encourage you to have a look at the PMFC website and articles if you're interested in this. It wasn't until 2014 that the American rules were settled and adopted in provisional form. And that was also the first year that the Peterborough Club flew to Ian's Ferry 500 setup as part of the Ferry summer comps. And that was done to a 12-second motor run. I don't need to remember too much of this because I'll come back to this in a few minutes, but just giving you an overview. Peterborough flew Ferry 500 in 2015, 2016, but it fizzled out and sadly Ian died in 2017. More recently, in reviving the class as a tribute to Ian, John in 2018 made timers, and there was an article and a free plan for the Ferry 500 class model in the 2019, or in a 2019 aero modeler. So these are some pictures of the Ferry 500 model. The plan is available for that. That's John's building pictures from Dave Clark, I believe. During this time, American rules were fixed to a specific park zone motor and battery. And so they probably had a more consistent development. And growth over those decades were more consistent. As always, the availability of powertrains is a major factor, especially things like timers. America opened up the rule to general 8mm motors in 2020, and in 2021, they fixed it to 8.5 millimeters, 8.5 times 20. Now, I'm going to go through all of these rules in detail in a moment. So I'm just giving you a few little indicators, and then we'll dive back in. It's important to note that E20 and all electric classes, to a point, evolve as technology improves and components get easier to get hold of. I think this is something that we struggle with a bit in the free flight scene because it's not rubber power. The speed at which battery technology, motor technology keeps on changing means we've got to keep on tweaking the rules and create a level playing field. And what we've seen is that rules for E20 have developed organically and concurrently, meaning that different iterations of a class have sprung up in different regions. So Ian Middlemiss developed the Ferry 500 class with its fixed powertrain, and then this developed into an open E20 class. So John took those rules and opened it up a little bit more. We're going to have a look at those rules in a moment because two sets of Peterborough rules emerged, a Ferry 500 and an open E20 event. Great for small field flying, but there's some drawbacks to those. So hopefully you're with me so far. You've got this desire to create 20-inch duration model using electric motors, and you've got a couple of sets of rules emerging in the UK, and you've got rules emerging in the US, and people doing slightly different things all over. But lots of exciting developments and local clubs competing in E20. Ferry 500 here, very much the UK sort of staple of E20, and these FET timers, which you can see, which Ian made and then John Whitmore has made. So the FET timer, if you can see on the cursor, is this device here, which you zap those two connectors with a 9-volt battery, and it's configured to give an 8-second motor run on this 2-cell LiPo battery. Okay, so Ferry 500 rules very quickly on your screen there. As you can see, I just want to move that dialog box so I can read that off the screen. 20-inch projected span, and then specifying the motor, the Peterborough timer, and the 2-cell 180 milliamp battery. And that blue and yellow model is my Ferry 500. And then move this on to the open E20, because these components were getting hard to get hold of. It's difficult to get hold of GWS motors and etc. So Jonathan and others created the open E20 rules. Similar, so 20-inch projected span again, but this time you can have any motor, you can have any prop, you can have any battery. There's no minimum weight, there's no maximum weight. The restrictions are an 8-second motor run because you're flying on a very small field, must have a dethermalizer, and flying to a 60-second max. Okay. They're great, these models. and there's been a lot of fun has been had with them, and still is had with them. They pack a lot of power, some of these little motors, so they can really scream and climb up very quickly. But on the whole, they are heavy. The temptation is to use bigger motors and bigger batteries, and they're only a 20-inch wingspan. So what goes up must come down, and there are severe drawbacks. The motors and batteries that were designated for the Ferry 500 class, they're no longer readily available, and equivalents are hard to come by. Furthermore, whilst these FET timers, so these little components which you zap with a 9-volt battery, they're excellent, but they can be off-putting to those of us who only have a rudimentary electrical and soldering ability. So look, I'll come clean. I have to confess at this point, so you know where I'm coming from. I'm an aeromodeler. I'm not an electrician. I can solder, but I'm not great. I have a rudimentary knowledge of electronics. I like to build and fly model aeroplanes. I like trimming, looking for lift, competing in competitions. But if I have to spend hours soldering components together and working out thrust ratios and everything, that's where I begin to get lost. That's just where I am. I know other people really enjoy that side of stuff. So I built a Ferry 500, but then after that, I wasn't really sure where to go with the whole E20 thing. Timers and components were not something that came easy. And in the meantime, because I'm a relatively young man and I'm a YouTube generation, I start looking around and seeing these models in the US and think they look brilliant. There's all of these different E20s. What are they doing? What's happening in America? Why have they got these kits available, etc.? So this put us on to a bit of a discovery. If something is to survive, it must grow. And inevitably, if growth involves development and change. If you stay static, you die. That's true of the spiritual life as well, but I won't go into that now. Two significant developments in the world of E20 occurred in 2021, which demonstrate, I think, the potential of this emerging class. The first is what happened in America. So E20 as a class has enjoyed far more popularity in the United States than in Europe. And in the US, E20 have been flown for several years under provisional rules. These rules now became codified into the E20 class and echo what others were doing in other parts of Europe. This meant that for the first time, what an E20 looked like in terms of model specification and powertrain was clearer. You could say that was an E20. So let's just take a closer look at these rules. Okay, hopefully you can see that. So these are the rules that America adopted, the National Free Flight Association Society in America codified, and we largely adopted these then for running events in Buckminster, the Nationals, and a postal competition, which I'll come back to in a moment. Okay, so projected wingspan, let's move that over there. Projected wingspan, not to exceed 20 inches, okay, monoplane, straightforward, still the same as the other two classes so far. No auto services except dethermalizers. Well, we didn't spell that out, but that was inherent in the other two sets of rules. Model weight, model must weigh at least 1 ounce, that's the Americans, that's 28.35 grams, 28.35 grams, sorry, in English money. Okay, so there's a minimum weight now. Motor eligibility, models must use an 8.5 millimeter times 20 millimeter coreless, that's a brushed electric motor, no gear drives are allowed. So direct drive motor, little drone motor, okay? Propeller is not to exceed 2.7 inches in diameter. The battery required is a single cell LiPo battery, so 1S. There's no limit on the capacity, In the UK, we said no high voltage lipos, and we did that for the postal. I understand the US rules last year, they introduced high voltage lipos. I personally think that ruins it a bit, but that's just me. Okay. Okay, don't want to go there yet. Hopefully you're with me. If you're not, bear with me. So those are, largely speaking, American rules, which we adopted to fly at various events in the UK, which I'll explain a little bit more about in a moment. Now, the second significant development is the availability of the components. And this, guys, really is a game changer. It makes E20 accessible to all who want to try free flight duration in this great electrical class. Now, I might get his name wrong because I've only ever corresponded with him. I don't think I've ever said it aloud, but Meli Caracelli or Caracal of BMK Free Flight Products has produced and made available ingenious, lightweight E20 timers. He also produces all kinds of trackers, even GPS now, E36 timers. And I know Chris Edge is giving a seminar in a couple of weeks where he's going to unpack the BMK story in detail. So I'm not going to talk at length about this. I just want to focus here on what pertains to E20. But as a little bit of a taster of what's to come when Chris talks. The long and the short of it is that BMK produces fantastically simple, cheap, reliable timers. And these timers incorporate a DT, a simple coil element that heats up and burns through a rubber band for the DT. And the timer costs a very reasonable $14.99, which I think is incredible this day and age. And for those people that actually want a whole package, okay, so you decide, I want to get into this E20 game, how can I do this? You can pay £30 and Meli will send you a motor, a timer, a battery, a charger, a propeller, an extension lead. In short, everything you need to get started. He then fits them with micro JST plugs. So you don't have to solder, which I jumped up in the air about. Hate soldering. So it really is plug and go. And importantly, these motors, timers, and batteries are configured for these rules, this NFS standard E20 rules. So we had these two developments, the development in America, the availability of these great packages. What were we going to do with this? There were no competitions. What were we going to do? Well, we started some. Peter Gibbons from Peterborough Model Flying Club and myself decided to start running some low-key events at BMFA Buckminster on a Monday. We provided small cash prizes, certificates, and we just saw what happened. We ran 5 rounds through this last year with some success. We ran this as 2 events, one using these rules and this setup, and the other one to the open E20 Peterborough rules. Importantly, of course, for those of you that are eagle-eyed or have noticed, you can fly these models, these modern models with the BMK timer to the open rules, the Peterborough open rules, simply shorten the motor run. So by changing the motor run, the plane is, I can't think. You know what I mean? It's been a long day. Eligible for both classes. Eligible for both classes. Did I have another thing? I didn't. I should have had there as well that the motor run is 20 seconds on there. I don't know why I've missed that out. Anyway, so that's an important point that I'll come back to in a few moments. Okay, towards the end of the talk. 20-second motor run is allowed here with the Peterborough rules. 8 seconds at Ferry Meadows. Sometimes we bump that up to 10 seconds or 12 seconds in various circumstances.
Luke, can I just ask very quick question coming in from Colin Arnold. NFS rules, any limits on fuselage length or tail feathers?
No. And the Peterborough Open rules, we voted to remove those limits on our open rules at the AGM last year, which we did. The website hasn't been updated, but for our Peterborough Club competitions, there was no length on the fuselage, restriction on the fuselage or the tail feathers. As far as I know, I've read the rules several times, I've been flying them, there is no restriction. The only restriction on the airframe is the weight and the projected wingspan. And certainly I would be in favour of that moving forward, because designs are already merging with sort of longer moment arms and all kinds of things.
Thanks, Luke.
Okay. So BMK, let's have a look at some of the BMK stuff. So hopefully you'll see some of those pictures. My screen's still sharing okay, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely fine.
You can see what I can see. So in this picture here on my little Pearl, we've got battery, extension lead going into your timer, the start button, a little coil and DT band. It's another picture of the band just DTing, and there you go, there's a close-up there of the band actually melting through. It took me several goes to get that shot. But there we go, there's a DT in operation. I'll do better than that because I'll actually show you some of these working in a few moments. But great stuff. And this, I should add as well, is the bog standard version of the E20 timer. Melly does an E20 Plus with an RDT, and you can have a tracker plumbed into it and all kinds of things. So there are different iterations of these E20 timers. But yeah, these BMK timers, great products. If you are technically minded, I know John Whitmore has produced his own very lightweight stuff as well, and is rather a mastermind at it all. So there's the option in this class to go your own way. You don't have to use this stuff, but you can, of course, just get off the shelf stuff as well. So we ran some competitions in the year. We ran various things at Buckminster. There's one of the early Buckminster's events there last February or March or whatever, when it was rainy and the leaves went on the trees. So we're getting there again this autumn. And we ran a World Postal Championship. Peter and I wanted to do something sort of independently to kind of push the class, but also celebrate, it's a centenary year for model flying in this country. We were getting into this, what can we do to celebrate? And Peter came up with the idea, well, let's have a World Postal and push this. And we ran two categories in the World Postal. So an open class, which incorporated these Peterborough rules, and these fixed class with a 20-second motor run. There's a great write-up by Chris Edge 2 aeromodelers ago. Have a look at it. Yeah, I mean, with postal competitions, nobody seems to get the huge numbers that we would like, but it was a good start. It was a good start. We had entries. We did have entries from the USA, from the UK, from Finland, from places I can't pronounce. Yeah, it was good. And there are plans to repeat that, albeit in a lower key version sort of next year. I think Peter's keen that we do something every few years and make something big, but we'll see how that goes. We've also got sort of ideas to run a winter league and all kinds of things. So there's the World Postal event. We did the meetings at Buckminster. What else did we do? Oh yeah, we go. There's Peter and I having put our flights in one of the hottest days of the year. I think it's 38 degrees there at Buckminster. We also had an event at the Nationals, and that's Chris Edge and I flying together in the fly-off, where he wiped the floor with me. But I had a broken wing, so I'm not going to go there. But no, we had a trial event at the Nationals to see if it could be done and to sort of showcase the class. And we had a pretty good turnout considering there. So we've had lots of sort of activity this year. Future events planned. We'll hopefully do some more stuff at Buckminster this coming year. more sort of postal events. We're talking about a winter league. Unfortunately, I've just moved house. September and October is just gone. And I haven't been able to do anything. This is probably the first aero modeling thing I've done since, I don't know, the summer. So personally, I haven't had a chance to do a lot, but we're trying to keep the momentum and build on what we've done. Have got some observations about this, but I'll come back to that by way of conclusion. Okay. So, guys, we have got great BMK setup, off-the-shelf products. We have competitions to fly. What kind of models can we build? Where can we go with it? Well, there's lots of variety to be had with these little 20-inch span models, and it depends really on what approach you want to take with the class. What's important is weight and power. You need a light model and a battery that's decent, otherwise simply the model won't climb. I'll talk about batteries in a moment. One approach is the scaled down classic power model designs of old. And to this end, Joshua Finn of J&H Aerospace has produced a wonderful series of micro power models as E20s. So we've got the micro Starduster, which I was holding in the last picture. I might stop sharing for a second. There we go. Yeah, so we've got the micro Starduster. Hopefully you can see that. Yep. There is the micro satellite, very attractive little models.
Nice.
Okay. And this climbs like a beast. Difficult to trim this one, but it's going well now. Micro Pearl, micro Ramrod, micro Piccolo. I've got a Piccolo to build actually. I know Peter Gibbons and others have made 20-inch versions of Dixielanders, of Witchhawks. Josh's kits are really first class, and his YouTube channel showcases really what these models can do. The Micro Pearl and the Micro Starduster are firm favourites among the Buckminster crowd. I say there's a question there about motors. I'll get onto that, don't worry. Another approach is to go down the carbon fibre high-tech road. Let's go back to screen share. Sorry about all the jumping around.
You're doing fine. And the voice is holding up, so keep going.
It's holding up at the moment. Yeah, we're okay at the moment. So yeah, there's some of Josh's kits which I've built and thoroughly recommend them. A lot of fun. In fact, the Starduster came second in the postal, so it's a decent model. Yeah. There's a Witchhawk there that I think is a Witchhawk that Peter built. Model in the bottom left-hand corner. That actually is only 18-inch wingspan, sheet, tail, tail feathers. I broke the fuselage, but until I broke the fuselage, it was a very good model, a very sort of go-to, reliable little performer. I've got a foam model. This is Josh Finn's Super E20, probably the best model. His aerofoil section is based on one of his F1D models. And the foam is laser cut by Mariusz in Poland, who's been doing a lot on E20. And if you're interested, go to the Facebook E20 group and see some of the stuff that he's been doing there. Unfortunately, mine has had a couple of problems with hawthorn bushes. And so the aerofoil isn't so good now. I have another one to build, but great little model. High tech, right? So this is Chris Edge's GTS E20. This won the Nationals event. Yeah, great model. If you want to go down that route with geodetic structure, 3D printed components for motor mounts and all of that. I'm not sure if I meant to mention that, Mark, I know you've been experimenting in this area.
Yeah. When I get chance, I've made a few little components printed in that, which if people want STL files for them, battery boxes and things, yes, we can make those available somewhere.
So that really is, if that's the route you want to go down, you've got the scope. Then you can do all sheet models. Thermite by Ralph Bradley. I think there's a model called Cliche as well in the States. This John Whitmore's example here. It's a high aspect ratio model, all sheet construction, very, very light. I think it came out underweight. I had to put a little bit of weight on it, but I mean, it climbs like a bat out of heaven. It goes very well. Again, you know, an all sheet model, which to be able to compete with that, yeah, you can do that in Catapult Glider, but you can't do that in many others. So you can go in many different directions. So guys, you want to build an E20. What is your setup? How do you do this? Well, you need a timer, a BMK motor timer and DT. You could go for the RDT Plus, which is what I've got on that satellite. I'll demo that if we've got time in a moment. So that certainly is an option. Your motor, you need an 8.5 times 200 millimeter brush motor. You can get those from BMK individually. You can buy them from Amazon. You can get them from eBay. You can get them from J&H Aerospace if you want to get them from the States. Josh's ones pack a bit of a punch, I've noticed. I've been experimenting. BMK ones are very, very good. I've got BMK ones in some of my models. And the ones on Amazon, 4 for $9.99. There are 2 sets on Amazon. One has a higher RPM than the others. So just look at the spec.
Luke, can we just correct that? It's 20 millimeters, not 200 millimeters.
It is 20. Did I say 200?
Fine. No, it's fine. Don't worry.
Yeah, sorry. 20. You're not allowed a 200 millimeter. Yeah, don't. Yeah. I've got a cold. Okay.
Right.
Prop. I use Gem Fan or similar. So a 65 millimeter prop. I don't know if you can see that. These are drone props, standard drone props. If you meant 65 millimeter just comes under the limit of 2.7 inches. You can buy iterations of those from Amazon, from Banggood, from AliExpress, from Drone Junkie, from Component Shop, from just about anywhere. Be warned, you have to buy 8 normally, or 4, and 2 or 4 will be pushers, tractors. So you have pullers and pushers, tractors and pushers. So you need to make sure you put the right prop on the motor and that it's spinning the right way. It's easy to change because you just pull the prop on and off. It's not hard to take them on and off. Battery. Done quite a lot of experimentation with battery. The batteries that I've personally settled on are the giant power batteries. I was using 180 milliamps, but I've gone to 220, even 260 milliamps in some of the models because I've got a better C rating. I've noticed the climb is a little bit better. I get those from Component Shop. They're very, very good. They're about $3.95, $4.95 a battery. Order a few because shipping is about 10 quid courier. I haven't found anything better than those personally. Turnigy is hard to get hold of now anyway. So yeah, giant power batteries. I've seen people use 150 and 130 milliamp as well. So a bit of an experimentation, but I would say to get yourself going, a 200 or 220 milliamp would be fine. UMC Ultra Micro Connector 2-pin extension connector. So BMK sell those and they come in the packs and they'll come with a timer. And that's because you can't plug the battery directly in and keep it flush with the fuselage. It doesn't like it. So you need a connector, which I'll show you close up in a moment. And I suggest you get a tracker because they're tiny little models and they fly a long way. We can fly them without trackers, and we do. And I've broken one of my trackers and lost the other tracker when I crashed the model and it fell out in long grass. So I'm flying without a tracker at the moment, but I need to get some more for the new year. BMK sells very lightweight trackers, which using a cable, so I had to do some soldering, using a Y cable. So we soldered some of these cables together into a Y lead. Don't know if you can see that. I'll take it off screen share in a moment. And then you can run your tracker off your flight battery. Charging. This is my favorite charging setup. You get one of these from Amazon for about $9.99. and then you get a power pack. My power pack go-to of choice is Juice. They don't pay me to say that. It's 10,000 milliamps. You can get better ones now. And it's very simple. Let's stop sharing so I can show you this properly. Okay. So here is a little charger. Here is a power pack. You plug the power pack in, like so. Take your battery, put your battery in, and you'll see that little light glows and it will go out when it's charged. So you can charge at home, but obviously you can take this to the field and you can keep charging your batteries. And in fact, you can charge multiple batteries at any one time. Sometimes you need to take it out and put it in again if you're adding it when it's charging. And that whole setup, I think a Juice thing costs about 15 quid. That's 10 quid. For 25 quid, 30 quid, you've got a charger. You can charge 6 batteries on there. I always fly competition flights with fresh batteries. You can get multiple flights out of batteries. With a BMK timer, if you use one battery and you keep on using multiple flights on that same battery, they'll get to a point where there won't be enough power for it to fire the DT. It won't heat the band up. So it'll fly your model, but it won't necessarily DT. So I always use a fresh battery, and I don't know why you wouldn't, but you know, that's me. Okay, some final observations and then questions. Okay, please repeat the charger details. I will do, don't worry. Okay, so final observations. What have we learnt? These are little models. They don't like turbulence. So a little bit of turbulence rolling off hedges at Buckminster and stuff really can destroy a flight. You've got to choose your moment. Once they get away, they're wonderful. They fly quite fast, and so little warps, little changes, things that aren't lined up, change your trim, wreck your trim very, very quickly. So you've got to check and check again before you fly, and that pays off. Also, and this is the first time I've done this, there'll be people out there that will say, no, Luke, you don't know what you're talking about. And I don't know what I'm talking about, but this is my experience. These models go where they want to go. So you trim them. Sometimes I trim them for a right pattern and they'll go on a right pattern, right climb, right glide. Sometimes I'll trim them and they just won't, for whatever reason, it's working against it. There'll be a warp or something. And so, right, if it wants to go left, it will go left. And it flies left. And so I got over it. I got over my pride and think, well, if it's going to stay in the air for 4 minutes doing left, it'll do left. I had one, my favorite model, which unfortunately I broke because I didn't check that it was lined up properly. Went right left, and actually I think right left or left right really helps the transition at the top, because you know, something to kick it out at the top of the climb. If it's going the opposite direction, I think that helps, but you know, that's just me. Some people have different approaches. This is what worked for me. The other thing, which I didn't think it was very contentious. I didn't think it was very contentious, but it seemed to be. There was a lot of people that were asking us around the time of the postal competition. Some people seem to think the 20-second motor run was problematic. Now, I didn't make the rules up. I adopted them from the United States that have a 20-second motor run. And I like the 20-second motor run because, yes, there are people that that will max. But if you're new to the class, if you're learning, if this is your first kind of thing, or even if it's just, you're not at the top of the game, a 20-second motor run levels a playing field. Now, the question is, or the truth is, people haven't all been maxing out in the competitions. If people maxed out every time on a 20-second motor run, then I'd say, yeah, perhaps this is too easy. But then you still have a fly-off, and a fly-off separates, the winners. And, I've flown CO2, East Anglian Gala, year before last, where we all made the fly off in a 2 minutes. So, you know, and I'm sure Mark's had competitions and things where, you know, we all make the fly off sometimes, but that hasn't been the case yet with E20 in the UK. Should we drop the motor run? Well, we have dropped the motor run when conditions warrant it. So, okay, yes. We've dropped the motor run in for 10 seconds. We've dropped it for 15 seconds on a windy day. Perhaps it should be dropped a bit, but that's another conversation to be had on another day. Okay.
Luke, let me come in there a second,
Yeah.
just to give you a chance to have a bit more of that holy water. The observing it, I think the whole point is at the moment it's still in its infancy, and I think it's all about enjoyment and fun. And I think giving it a little bit extra motor run is probably a sensible thing. In the UK, as opposed to other countries with larger land masses, the conditions are always a little bit rougher in the UK. Some of my buddies are in the room, and one especially from the US, and he'll tell you all day long that, you know, flying in the UK, it's a lot more turbulent. It can be a lot more bouncy. So I think give it a few more years, get it built, and then you can look at the motor run once people start to get used to it a little bit more. And that would be my observation from watching what went on, you know, and I've seen a lot of you guys flying, and it's good.
I would agree. I would agree, and I think the beauty is as well with this class is that you can drop the motor run depending on circumstances. So if you are in a small field, you know, we fly these models at Peterborough to an 8-second motor run. Same model, same setup. We've just dropped the motor run. If it's particularly windy and you think we're going to be outside, you drop the max, you drop the motor run. It's not rocket science. So yeah, I mean, I totally agree, Mark, and I think, yeah, we have to wait and see what happens here. But motors are readily available, batteries are readily available, timers are readily available, and there are some great kits as well. So have I got time to demo stuff? I'm conscious I've been talking for a long time tonight.
Should we? Yeah, I think we could do a little bit of demo. There's one or two questions here. There's a couple of questions, but most people are just listening. You're covering everything. So unless there's 50 questions come through, I think, you know, you carry on demoing.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I know there's something flashed up about the Juice power packs have a cutout. They do. That's never been a problem. I've been charging these batteries off Juice power packs all year. Please repeat the charger details. BMK does great charger. BMK does do a great charger, but you only charge one battery off it. You can use the BMK charger. Yeah. This charger is screen share. Share. They're the charger details. Okay. It's that little device from Amazon. It's Amazon UK, so I don't know what's available in the US. And any power pack, you know, that's half decent will do it. Of course, that's meant to go into a USB-B charger, and you take reasonable precautions when charging LiPo batteries. I mean, I don't need to spell that out. Obviously, in a field, I put it in a LiPo bag in the field. I don't, you know, charge it in the boot of the car or anything. But these are small 1S batteries, so you know, it's a little bit more containable than a big 6S pack, but yeah. Anyway, you know, you do that at your own risk.
Just one point. Jonathan Whitmore's just come on and said, "Are we able to contribute by video audio?" I think, Jonathan, if you've got anything that is going to help people, could you, if you can get that across to Andy on the email link, what we'll do is we'll make it available to all. We're just getting a bit tight on time, so I'm just conscious that we want to let Luke finish, and but any information like that, or any videos and things like that, we can.
When Luke's finished, we can bring him in as a panelist, so that's no problem.
Yeah,
Jonathan knows a lot more about the electrical side stuff than I do. As I say, I'm an aero modeler, not really an electrician, but I have been doing this all year, so it's just really sharing my experience and what we've been doing. So I've taken it off screen share. Hopefully you'll see this is the Starduster. We've got this little GemFan prop, the motor, which is mounted. Melly from BMK got me onto this. bit of heat shrink tube, so that the motor goes into the mount. Then we've got our timer and our battery and our DT activated. And what we can do is I've set the motor timer and DT for 5 seconds, I think. So hold the button and let go. And that will run. And hopefully, yeah, and then it's DT'd.
Yeah.
So a very simple setup. You time the motor by holding the button down when you plug the battery in and counting flashes for both your motor run and for your DT. If you want to go a little bit more sophisticated, you can go to the RDT Plus. So similar setup, but this is a radio DT. So if I start that motor at the moment, I have a small RC transmitter, which will cut the motor in DT, or just DT it if I want to. So we can start the motor, and then I can stop it like that, and the model DTs. So very useful, especially if your model's going out of sight. Voice is struggling a little bit, but we'll bring this to a close, I think.
We'll get a couple of questions in, and then we'll just see here. One of them was for Malav, which I can answer to give you a few moments. He was saying about converting a P20 model. I think with E20, anything of 20-inch span is going to fly. So just give it a go. These are wonderful little motors. They're inexpensive. There's a P20.
That was based on a P20 model.
Based on a P20 model,
which I then changed a lot. But I mean, actually, the aerofoil section is a P20, and and the tail was as well. I changed the ends, but I could stick the Sweet P air surfaces on that, and that would fly. Same,
John Mars just asking, did I see something about battery having to do 3 flights? That was a Peterborough Model Flying Club rule, I think, wasn't it?
That's a Peterborough rule. That's not a rule for the rules that we adopted at Buckminster and for the postal and that's yeah.
Cool. Well, they're the questions. So unless anybody else, we've got some in the chat came up, which I think were quite good.
I'll bring Jonathan in as a panelist so he can.
Yeah, if Jonathan wants to come in, we'd love to have him.
I want to find him on the long list. There he is.
Somebody's just said the BMK charger does 2 batteries, just to correct you, Luke. So there you go.
Okay, yes. I mean, it might well do 2 batteries. Sorry. I don't use it, so,
Here he is.
This does 6 batteries.
There you go.
Hi, guys. I don't know if you can... How's my connection? I'm in a holiday cottage.
Good, John.
In the middle of nowhere, so...
That's working well.
Yeah. Just want to first of all just say that thank you to Luke and Peter, Pete Gibbons, who've been an absolute, they've brought an absolute dynamo mentality to it in the last year or so, and I don't think we'd all be here without that. So big up Luke on that. The ideas and the drive has been really something really good. I only really had one point to make, which was just about the time of the motors. I'm not particularly invested in one or the other, but I think it's just worth pointing out the differences between the US and the Peterborough, the UK flying fields available. The Willamette Club fly on a field that's 10 times the size of Ferry Meadows and about 3 times the size of where we have the Nats?
Buxton.
Buxton, yeah, couldn't think for a minute, yeah. So their rules and the 20-second run and the long max and the fly-offs obviously work very well there where they've got the space to do it. The reality is that Peterborough, it was really Ian who developed it. We started with 12 seconds. We were losing models on 12 seconds in Peterborough. Because Peterborough is a very small field and it's surrounded by lakes. So it's really not in the same league as BMFA type competitions. It really is a small field. So majority of people who've been in touch with me are people who don't really do comps. They're people who maybe want to go out and fly in a local field, and that's the majority of people who are building the Ferry 500 type of model. But obviously Luke, his interest has been in getting it sort of more of a competition class. So my personal thoughts is the 20 seconds rule, the NFSS rule, works in a competition type situation at Parkston where you can chase it all day. But the reality is that that little light Ralph Bradley model, the thermite. When I fly that on I've flown that on 20 seconds in a dead flat calm, and it's out of the field with the DT going off after the motor run. There's just no way I can fly and trim on 20 seconds. So there's a big difference between the way we fly in the UK and the wind and the conditions, and the style of model that has resulted in versus the American one. Now, I don't have any particular opinions on how we go forward. I think there's scope for adapting a rule like 20-second rule, and then saying perhaps on the day like 10 seconds instead. Obviously just wanted to make it clear that that's where the differences over the 10 years of development have really come from. What we fly has developed because of where we fly and how we fly. That was it, really.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And I witnessed the nationals, and I'm seeing you guys flying as well. And on a nice day when it's buoyant, these things just disappear. And actually, the biggest issue is actually finding them or actually watching them in the air. They're that small. You've got binoculars on them. So I think it will evolve. I think the most important thing is giving everybody a shout at it, let everybody get used to it and enjoy it. That's what it's all about. It's a small field flying model, really, but with massive performance. Yeah,
this is the crazy thing, is that when you start with the weight, they are nuts. They are like E36, so 20 seconds. Imagine flying E36 in 20 seconds. That's the kind of, not
but
quite in that league.
You're really good at building to weight. A lot of people aren't at that level. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And so if you build 5 grams more, changes it completely.
It does, yeah. That's worth pointing out as well, is that these little 8mm motors, they haven't got a great deal of thrust. So if you build overweight, they're quite sedate. If you build them to weight, they're really fast. So that's an important distinction.
And it is a challenge to build to 28.35 grams. It's much, 30 grams is all right, 32 is all right, but you start getting to 35, 36, 37, and it changes the flight profile a lot.
Really does. And you start to need thinner airfoils and flimsier structures and things. And that is really why Ian ended up with that motor, and the models coming out at 60 grams, is he couldn't build a 30-gram E20. That's the reason. And he couldn't. So that power and that weight and that consequential poor glide was pretty much because Ian was not the latest builder. But what came out of it was a great beginner standard model. So that plan is, you could give that to a complete beginner and they could come up with a really fun model.
I noticed at the Flying Aces this year, they flew, I think it was a GTS model. No, it wasn't a GTS, but it was anyway, it was an NFS style model flying to the open Peterborough rules, just reducing the motor run.
Yeah.
And the guy did it very successfully. We had a junior flying as well. But what I think is really important about this class is that you can do all these things, and you can have all sheet models and foam models and different iterations. And I think that is a real sort of sign of hope. There's free flight duration is dying, and that's a sad reality.
They are great accessible first models. They really are fun.
What we need is kits and more plans in the UK.
Yeah.
And particularly sort of easy to build kits, perhaps foam or all sheet models that you can say to not just a junior but someone who hasn't built one of these before. Stick that together, stick this in, see how you get on, and then you can go down the lightweight high tech route as well. But
brilliant, thank you guys.
Reasonable duration. The Ferry 500s would do about 45 seconds in dead air.
Yeah.
They were quite heavy. But when you build a pretty good American type one, put it in lift and it's as long as the lift.
I think you picked up on one good point, and it's one we can probably leave people with, so that everybody can go on that. That it is an affordable model. The components are quite fun to put together. It's fantastic. The biggest issue has always been the timing device. That is sorted now. There are others on the market as well, but there's the BMK one. We've all seen it. We've all tried it. Or a lot of us have, and it is excellent.
So game changer.
It's a very affordable, small field model with great performance. And if you want to run it for 40, 50 seconds, put it through the clouds, off you go, fill your boots. And I think even Chris Edge reduced his duration of times because he was getting too high with it. So you can choose that, but he enjoyed it. He had fun. You're having fun. That's what it's all about.
You should note, Mark, that in the Nats we both flew to a 10-second motor run in the fly off. I did about a minute and a half or something, and Chris did about 4 minutes, 4.5. but yeah, I mean it. I can't remember where I was going with that, but anyway, yeah.
But I'm sure Chris will add some detail to that in a couple of weeks anyway when he's on. So
I think that's what makes it particularly good as well. Is it isn't a lot of the electric classes are the techie people, but this is not that. This is an aero modeler's model, and the Melee timer has absolutely made that possible. It's just like building a rubber model, but you just put a little motor in it.
And that's what attracted me. that was the thing that changed it for me.
For those who asked the question, I think for BMK you need to go onto Facebook. I think the connection's through there. It's a Facebook web page. I think.
Oh no, he has got a flight store. If you Google BMK Free Flight Store, he also has a flight store with his stuff on that you can see. But he has got a great BMK Facebook page. You're quite right.
So somebody has put a domain in the chat. BMKS.co.uk.
It's something like that.
It just flashed up. Yeah.
I'm just having a quick look.
You will find it through Google and other search engines and that. So
yeah, it is. I'll put it in the chat as a proper link if anybody's interested.
And like I say, check as Luke said earlier. There's plenty of stuff on the Peterborough Model Flying website as well, Flying Club website. Everybody's looked at that. Go and have a look.
I should mention, Mark, as well, I have a website, e20world.com, with links to BMK and elsewhere on it. We created it really for the World Postal, but there's lots of information on there as well, which will get you to Peterborough and BMK and our Facebook group. So that's e20world.com. Information on there as well. So go and have a read.
Brilliant, thank you. Well, we'll start to wind this up. I just want to put Bob Hedgie, just excellent presentation. Many thanks. Stuart Marsden, it will be available. I was at VMC with Andrew Boddington last week. Sam's was that was somebody else is having a separate talk about Sam's on there. That's good, isn't it? They're completely ignoring you and having a separate chat in the chat box there. Well, why not?
I think
fantastic session, guys, from KJRS. Andrew Green, he was talking about the website. Great talk from Simon V. Really enjoyed it. Looks like a nice competitive class. Many
if I could just Mark, sorry, if I could just mention that answer the question that Sam's, when Kev Wallace was running Sam's, he actually came up with an E20 kit, and that's what they're referring to. And right. BMC bought all of that. The issue with that, it's not really an issue, but it was not. It was an open E20 model. He did have a few different configurations for it, but it doesn't really fit into the new movement that Luke is bringing forward. So it would be really good if we could get a kit. I'm still working on getting a proper lightweight plan sorted, but that Sam's model that Kev produced wasn't really the direction that we're going.
Yeah, well, we can. I mean, we've got good links with Dave Lindley and that at the NFS. And I know Josh very well, so we can always get in touch with Josh, and maybe you can do an import of some stuff, and if others are interested, there are things that can be done, and this is where it needs to explore, and this is where Luke and you guys need to put that together. But I think we better wind it up there because some of us got a dinner to have, and just thank you, Luke. Especially that was a fantastic chat. I mean, the fact that we only had about 5 questions meant you covered everything because they, and they're still here as well. You've still got 100 and something in the room. So brilliant. Well done, sir. And we look forward to seeing you on the other side of the room next time, asking questions. And as royalty, there's a few now who have been back a couple of times to do talks. You'll be always welcome to give us another talk one day, and maybe a bit more detail. Somebody will want some more detail about E20 and others later.
Well, thanks for having me. Sorry that the voice isn't quite as polished this evening, but yeah, no, it's a lot of fun, and well done, guys, for all that you're doing, because it's a great series in the air tonight. So it's.
Can I just say, just think it's maybe been forgotten, but Luke has a very excellent, or runs a very excellent Facebook page on E20. So that's the place to go for questions, really. If you just, I don't know if I did mention that or not, but that's where most of the development talk is at the moment.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you.
E20 model flying on Facebook, but yeah, thanks, John.
And thank you for your thanks as well. Just to say that we do this because we love model flying, and that's what it's all about. We all do it for the same reasons that you do. So we'll have a big love in on model flying again. We'll see everybody in a couple of weeks. No, next weekend. Next week. Sorry, I'm already throwing it away. Let's see everybody next week.
Vintage Combat.
Vintage Combat. And this will be slightly larger, slightly dirtier, slightly faster. So there we go. Really good. Look forward to it. Thank you all, and good evening.